looking at the weird smiles on the faces of the Rosses. Oblivious Chris has no idea the danger ahead. Thankfully, upon returning to the room, she sent the rich black man's photo to Rod like a rocket. Rod immediately called her back and informed her that the guy in the photo was none other than the mysteriously missing Andre from weeks. Remembering they kicked a soccer ball together on the beach, Chris gasped, "Oh no, this isn't my dad. This is trouble." He came to the party with a 30-year-old white girl. Oh snap, the moment has finally arrived. With the phone dying, Chris sensed something was off. Clearly, a giant trap was waiting for him, and he urged his girlfriend to pack up and run. While he hurriedly packed, the closet suddenly caught his eye. He tiptoed to the cabinet, only to find it stuffed full of picture boxes. Chris flipped through the photos inside, eyes wide open. Every pic was of Rosses getting cozy with other black folks. Clearly, he wasn't the first black boyfriend. Chris freaked out, closing the cabinet only to find Rossi waiting right there at the door. Rossi was searching frantically for the keys, while Chris rushed down the stairs with his luggage. Rosses, once caring, turned icy cold, and Chris couldn't control his emotions. At this point, Rossi dropped the act, and Chris had no choice but to try and break free. Due to last night's premature hypnosis, Chris only heard the sound of the coffee cup clinking, and his body fell like a rag doll. When he came to, he found himself tied up on the basement sofa. Chris struggled desperately to escape. That's when the TV turned on, revealing Ross's grandpa on screen. Turns out, Grandpa, who could never beat the blacks, finally concocted an evil surgery called the merge after much trial and error. Just by transplanting a white brain into a black body, they could obtain control over it. Rossi and everyone else was just a cog in this dark wheel. Ross's job? Lure in healthy black guys, while Susan did the sleepy hypnotism. Finally, old Dean did the brain surgery, and the party guests were just spies picking hosts. As Chris panicked, the TV flashed the coffee cup again. He blacked out with a stare. Rod called Chris out of concern, but got Rossi instead. Rossi lied that Chris left alone after a fight, but Sharp Rod wasn't buying it. Even though he didn't find direct proof, Rod tracked down Ross's place through the call. Just then, Chris, who just passed out, woke up again as the TV turned back on. The TV showed the blind rich guy who bought her at a high price. It was all for the sake of success. Those who paid big bucks for brain transplants needed to chat with their subjects for mental prep. The blind rich guy then told Chris a harsh truth. After the surgery, the transferred subject's consciousness doesn't just vanish. A small portion is sealed deep in the brain. You can still sense outside after moving, but it exists like a ghost. Chris was preparing for the game when she suddenly noticed the cotton in her chair's armrest. But the TV showed the coffee cup again, and Chris was out cold once more. In the adjacent surgery room, Dean and his son prepped for the operation and successfully opened the blind millionaire's head. But just as the sleeping Chris picked up a stone ball from the ground and swung it hard at her head, turns out she had stuffed cotton in her ears while waiting for little Dean to return. With Rossi noticed little Dean hadn't returned, so she ditched the millionaire to check. But as she turned, Chris horns pierced her throat. Chris quickly escaped upstairs, grabbed her phone, but Susan lunged to try and hypnotize her. But Chris was too far gone and twisted the knife stuck in her palm. Swift action, she took out that crazy lady, but as she was opening the door to escape, not quite dead, little Dean lunged. First she used all her strength to stab deep into Dean's head, fully irate, and then swiftly grabbed the car keys. She hit the gas, speeding from the horror mansion, but while calling 911, she accidentally crashed into the charging maid, and bam, childhood trauma hit her like a truck. After some painful struggles, Chris loaded the injured maid in, only for